He broke records before he even set foot on the grid. At just 19, he was given the keys to a Formula One car and thrown into a world of 200-mile-per-hour battles, elite athletes, and ruthless expectations. Everyone thought he was the next big thing. And yet, just a couple of years later, his name vanished from the sport without a trace. No farewell, no controversy, nothing. But what really happened to Jaime Alguersuari? And why did Formula One turn its back on him so quickly? To understand his story, we have to rewind to one of the most shocking mid-season decisions in F1 history. In 2009, just past the halfway point of the season, Toro Rosso, Red Bull's junior team, made a bold and confusing move. They fired Sebastian, a veteran with championship pedigree in other series. Replacing him wasn't another seasoned racer. No, it was a teenager, a kid, Jaime Alguersuari. The announcement dropped like a bombshell. Nobody saw it coming. He wasn't just young, he was the youngest Formula One driver ever at that point. No Grand Prix experience, no testing mileage, just raw talent, a Red Bull contract, and enormous pressure. The reaction was mixed. Some saw it as a publicity stunt. Others thought Red Bull had lost their minds. But what happened next surprised everyone. On July 26, 2009, Jaime lined up on the grid in Hungary. Millions were waiting for the crash, for the nerves to overwhelm him, for the pressure to be too much. But it didn't happen. What they saw instead was something few expected. Jaime held his own. No wild spins, no rookie mistakes. He brought the car home in one piece, something even experienced drivers had failed to do that day. Quietly, he had passed the first test. And that was just the beginning. In 2010 and 2011, he began to build a reputation. He wasn't flashy, but he was steady, consistent, smart. He scored points. He made daring passes. He showed patience in the rain and aggression when it counted. By 2011, he had finishes in the top 10 in almost half the races, an impressive feat in a Toro Rosso that was far from podium material. But then, just as he was finding his rhythm, something strange happened. Despite his best ever season, Jaime received no promotion, no contract renewal, no hint of what was to come. And then, almost overnight, his seat was gone. No injuries, no scandals, just silence. Why would a team dump a young, improving driver at his peak? At the time, fans and media were confused. Jaime had done everything right. He hadn't crashed out like some other rookies. He hadn't made any public mistakes. But behind the scenes, a very different kind of race was being run. One Jaime never stood a chance of winning. You see, Toro Rosso wasn't just about results. It was about feeding Red Bull Racing with the next superstar. And Red Bull already had one, Sebastian Vettel. The team needed another Vettel, not another solid midfielder. And waiting in the wings were two drivers Red Bull had been grooming for years. Daniel Ricciardo and Jean-Éric Vergne. Both were highly rated, both were media darlings, and both were hungry for a seat. So, without warning, Toro Rosso cleared the deck. Jaime later revealed that he was completely blindsided. He had started training for the new season. He had meetings scheduled with engineers. Then the call came. We're going in a different direction. No warning, no explanation. Just like that, he was out of Formula One. The impact? Devastating. And not just professionally. Jaime wasn't just disappointed. He was broken. In interviews years later, he admitted that the decision crushed his confidence. Not just as a driver, but as a person. Because what do you do when you've done everything right, and it still isn't enough? He tried to stay close to the sport. He became a Pirelli test driver, learning the science of tires, data, and grip. He raced in Formula E, trying to carve out a new chapter. But something had changed. His performances were decent, but that edge, the spark, seemed to fade. And then, seemingly without warning, he disappeared from racing altogether. At this point, many believed Jaime had simply faded into retirement. But what he did next, no one could have predicted. Out of the spotlight of motorsport, Jaime was reinventing himself, not as a coach, not as a commentator, but as a musician. Behind the curtain, Jaime Alguersuari had been building a second identity. He had spent years studying music, producing beats, experimenting with sound. And when the roar of engines stopped, he found peace in rhythm. Under the name Squire, he released electronic albums, performed as a DJ, and headlined festivals. For him, it wasn't a career pivot, it was therapy. He later admitted that music saved him. It gave him a sense of control he never felt in Formula One. There were no lap times to beat, no team politics, just sound, emotion, and flow. For the first time in years, he could breathe. But was it enough? In 2021, a full decade after his exit from F1, Jaime gave an emotional interview. He said that for years he had nightmares, dreams where he was still in the paddock, still trying to prove himself, still waiting for that second chance. The trauma hadn't gone away. The pain of being discarded without explanation stayed with him long after the cameras stopped rolling. And then he said something even more revealing. He didn't miss driving. He missed the dream, the identity, the idea of who he was supposed to become. That one sentence summed up the hidden truth behind so many F1 careers. It's not just about wins or contracts. It's about identity. When you've spent your entire life chasing a dream and it ends before you reach the finish line. So what's left? In Jaime's case, what was left was resilience, a new purpose, and maybe even a better life. His story is unlike any other in modern Formula One, not because he failed, but because he didn't. He performed, improved, and matured, only to be let go by a system that never truly looked back. He became a cautionary tale for young drivers in the Red Bull program, a reminder that talent isn't always enough. Timing, politics, and branding matter just as much, maybe even more. But it's also a powerful message to fans that behind every helmet is a human being, one with hopes, flaws, and dreams. Jaime's racing chapter was short, yes, but it was also rich, emotional, and unforgettable if you take the time to look. And that's the beauty of stories like his. They may not end on podiums, but they still deserve to be remembered. Subscribe to Clutchwired and turn on notification for more amazing sports stories.